Okay, this is my critical thinking video for AEP 800. I decided to take a closer look at critical thinking in kindergarten and kind of show you what that might look like. I started out by talking about what is critical thinking, and critical thinking is a skill that elevates thinking. It kind of takes them to that next level of higher thinking and learning. It also is knowing how to think and not what to think, which I think is a really important skill our students need to have. Finally, it allows students to be reflective and independent thinkers. I wanted to create a list of things to do in order to have a critical thinking classroom. So some ideas are to ask open-ended questions. This gives students the opportunity to really express their reasoning and their thoughts behind their answer rather than just giving a yes or no answer. I also wanted them to be able to compare and contrast items and topics to see if there's any similarities or differences, to maybe see if there's a pattern, or if they could find or if they could see if anything we're learning about kind of fits a rule. I also think it's important to discuss and analyze the stories rather than to just read them. In kindergarten, I know that most of my day is focused on reading, and I really want my students to be able to kind of decipher what's happening in the story, really comprehend everything, make inferences about why it's happening or what's going on, that type of thing. I also think, especially in kindergarten, it's very important that our students learn to work cooperatively. They need to be able to work in a group and share ideas, as well as listen to ideas that are being shared. In my classroom, I try to make it a point that the right answer is not always the most important thing, as long as someone can explain how they got their answer or why they think that way. I think those are skills that are more important than just always having the right answer. I also think it's important to have students make decisions. I know in kindergarten these little ones are just starting to be very independent, and they are totally capable of making their own decisions. So I encourage that in my students with every task that they complete. Finally, I make sure that I question students' thinking and reasoning, and I get them to explain why they think that or how they got there, which I think if we start to build that at a young age, it will only develop over time, and they'll be able to express themselves even more clearly and systematically. I wanted to include some critical thinking activities for kindergarten. These are things that can be done with older grades as well. The first one is to have students act out a familiar story, but instead of having them just act out the story that we all know, have them act out the same story, but you change the plot or the problem just a little bit, and see if they can figure out how to solve that problem and come up with a new ending to the story. Another idea was for critical thinking in math was to give students a piece of paper with just a triangle on it and see if they can find different pattern blocks that will fill up the entire triangle. This gives them the opportunity to work with spatial reasoning, and they really have to problem solve in order to see if can they put all squares? Probably not. Can they put a bunch of little triangles? Yeah, they could do that. They could also see if they could come up with multiple ways to figure out which shapes will fit in there best. Finally, this is a quick and easy one that I use a lot in my classroom, is to have students complete jigsaw puzzles. I think it's a great skill for them to have. They have to look at the pieces and see if it has the right connecting parts, if it has the same colors as the things around it. They really have to work hard to figure out where all the pieces are going to fit in. So those are just some quick and simple activities that you could introduce into elementary school classroom.